Now that we have an understanding of basic phrasing, this final video is going to cover options. That is to say, what options do you have as a musician when it comes to phrasing? I drew a parallel with acting in the sense that an actor has many choices as to how he or she is going to say their lines. This is no different. The ultimate judgment is in the hands of the listener. However, keep in mind that there are still incorrect ways to phrase. Just like in acting, you may not be able to identify good acting, but you can certainly identify bad acting. For this example, we're looking at number 32 of the 40. As you can see, I've identified many different peaks of phrases. The blue arrows and the brown arrows contrast with each other. That is to say, you should choose one or the other, not both. Similarly, the red lines and the purple lines contrast with each other. However, if there is only one line in that part of the melody, you should still emphasize it. For example, the line in measure 2 should be emphasized no matter what. The purple line in measure 5 should also be emphasized. However, the two lines starting with the new phrase in measure 4, that is to say the purple line on D and the red line on E, should not both be emphasized. If it's still difficult for you to identify tension and release notes, I'm going to give you several examples here, the first one being the F sharp in measure 2. The composer could have written this. But instead, the composer wrote this. The reason why you emphasize the F sharp is because it's a dissonant note that resolves to a consonant note. Similarly, the composer could have chosen to omit the D in measure 4, like this. However, the composer chose to include it like this. You can hear how the end of the phrase sounds like a sigh. Now I'm going to play the excerpt in two different ways. See if you can tell the difference. Number 1. Number 2. As you can tell, there are many ways you can play this and a number of different variations that are completely acceptable. The purpose for making these videos is not to copy the way that I play, but to start to get you to think about music in a much more meaningful way rather than just the notes and rhythms. So I encourage you to pick up an etude and have a go at it. You may not be able to identify everything, but the process itself is the only way you'll really learn. At some point with enough practice, you'll be able to create your own musical identity based off the choices that you make. It also allows you to be creative in performance. If you have 10 different ways to play a phrase, you can actually be spontaneous in real-life performances. I'd like to conclude this section on how to phrase with re-emphasizing that your feelings are important. If you don't play with absolute conviction, your phrases will never work at all. There has to be some emotional content for your phrases to be effective. However, they are not a substitute for understanding how phrases work in music itself. Great playing should always sound spontaneous, but it should be meticulously prepared for.